I am Benyamin Korn, and you're listening to Jewish Independent Talk Radio here on 990 AM WNTP. We're very honored and fortunate to have as a return guest to the program Mr. William Kristol, editor of the Weekly Standard, one of the major figures in what could be called the neoconservative movement in the United States, the son of a great scholar and policy activist Irving Kristol, and also a commentator on Fox News. Mr. Kristol, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, and thank you for that very generous introduction.
Well, all deserved, I can assure you. I wanted to have you on today really to cover two topic areas. One is Sarah Palin and some of your recent comments about her, and also to get into a little bit the matter of American policy in the Middle East, on which you have, as on many issues, been very outspoken, although I must say in ways that surprised me a little bit, and you and I had communicated about that just in passing. First to Governor Palin. You were one of the very earliest boosters of Mrs. Palin, long before Mr. McCain nominated her. You were saying she was good material for the Republican vice presidency. And yet, a couple of days ago, in a panel with Arianna Huffington at Vanderbilt University in Tennessee, you said that you felt she had not, in the interim between the vice presidential campaign and today, demonstrated sufficiently, in your view, that she was a good candidate for the presidency, although you did say you continue to admire her and her positions and her role in the public discourse. Am I being fair about your statement up till now?
Sure. I mean, I actually didn't even mention her in the panel itself, in the discussion, which was not about individuals particularly. And then the first question from the audience actually was, well, you were a big defender and promoter of Sarah Palin, and do you still stand by that? And I said yes. And then the follow-up was kind of, well, do you think she should be the presidential nominee? And I said I didn't think she was going to run, and I'm doubtful that she should be the nominee. But one reason I think it's a bad idea, honestly, to be, into speculating about each of these individuals is, we'll see them all. If they choose to run, they'll be in 20 different debates, and they'll give a million speeches, and they'll have to take positions on issues in real time, which as people have in this latest crisis in Libya and elsewhere in the Middle East. And we'll learn a lot more about whether they're up to it. So I'm a little doubtful that she's going to run, and doubtful that she's really prepared herself to run as much as I thought she might have. But, she could easily prove me wrong.
Well, certainly I hope that she will prove you wrong, but not in order to repudiate you. And I want to point out that you were not only a defender, but in a way enshrined her neologism of repudiate, and said in a very memorable column of yours that repudiation of the Obama policies is precisely what we need. And in a way, you praised her for something that others were criticizing her for.
Yeah, I love that word. That was a very amusing creation of hers, and I'm happy that you're still using it, and I hope more people do. Do you think you're one of her biggest supporters, and you're in touch with others of her supporters? Do you think she's going to run? I'm really curious about that.
I certainly think that she is going to run, and I think that the best indication of that is that just about a month ago, she hired as the head of her PAC, Sarah PAC, a veteran of three major GOP presidential campaigns. Of course, every presidential campaign is major, but Mr. Michael Glassner occupied a senior major position in each of those campaigns. Twice for Mr. Dole from the state of Kansas, where Glassner is also originally from. And then he was head of the vice presidential component of McCain-Palin. So I think one doesn't hire somebody of his experience, of his caliber, just because one is going to mark time as a television commentator. At least it means that she's giving it a serious consideration.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I would say this: she's such an unusual force in American politics that I think if she gets in, all bets are off. I think she could get in, and one looks at the polls today, and I think by conventional kind of political analysis would say she'd have a bit of an uphill fight for the nomination. Her negatives are higher than those of most Republicans, and right now she's not leading the polls, though she's not doing badly either, obviously. And she's so unusual, and her support could really galvanize again, I would say. I think it's drifted away to some degree because, there's been nothing to really rally behind at this point, except some individual little controversies and speeches. So it'll be fascinating if she gets in, honestly, just as an observer of politics. I would say it will be very unpredictable, I think, how she does. And then she'll have, more than the others, I guess, she'll have her fate in her own hands, I think. If she does well, she can win the nomination, no question about it. If she doesn't, then she won't,
Yes, I think that she is clearly the only figure on the American political scene today who could go to a shopping mall or a ballpark and attract tens of thousands of people to come and hear her political rhetoric. I don't think that the president could do that. Maybe if he appeared with Oprah Winfrey, and I mean that seriously. That's what was going on here in Philadelphia in the lead up to November 2010. It's a combination of her charisma and her celebrity, but also the devotion of her followers and in some cases just curiosity about who she is and what she stands for.
No, that counts for a lot, and I agree with that. And I think she's, as I say, a very unusual figure, sort of sui generis. And, maybe I'm being a little too, affected by inside the Beltway conventional wisdom. She probably won't run, and that she hasn't taken advantage of opportunities as she might have. But, look, we'll see. That's why we have campaigns. Candidates get to prove themselves. I think I said at Vanderbilt when I was asked this question, I actually agree with her about almost everything, so I have no issue with her views, and actually I'm very pleased with strength on foreign policy and defense policy, for example, when some other Republicans have not been strong in my view on that. So, look, from your lips to God's ear, or at least to her ears, and maybe if she runs, it'll certainly be an exciting next year.
Well, I certainly did not invite you onto the program to take you to task over it. In fact,
that's okay.
I extended the invitation to you a few days before the comments at Vanderbilt. And one of the things that I wanted to get your reaction to is precisely something you just alluded to, which is that inside the Beltway, so to speak, she has taken a lot of criticism in recent weeks from normally reliable conservative commentators who are still reliable, but seem to be writing her off. And I'll just say that my take of this situation is as follows. Governor Palin, most politicians, when they say they want to spend more time with their family, normally it's an excuse for wanting to get out of town for any reason but spending time with the family.
Right.
But in Governor Palin's case, I think that it is clearly the fact. When she gave her speech in India in front of a very high echelon audience there, and if you see the video clips of the audience, I mean, you feel underdressed just looking at the people who were sitting there, in a way that practically only India really can project. And she's standing there. She acquitted herself very, very solidly and got very strong reviews afterwards from the Indian press. She's standing there talking about how she was in her kitchen at home writing her speech for the India address. Now, can you imagine any other major political figure not only talking about sitting in their kitchen writing an address, but actually doing it? But when Sarah Palin says it, you know that it's authentic.
Yeah, I didn't see that clip, but that is a funny thought. I was in India myself in December. It's such an interesting place, and I hadn't been in 20 years, and even then only for a day. So a few of us spent about 5 days there, met with a lot of government officials. And I think it was good that she went to India because it is very important, as she said, ally, or at least partner in many ways, and potential ally of huge democracy in Asia. And I'm glad she went, and I'm glad the speech was well received. And she went to Israel and had dinner with Bibi Netanyahu and his wife, and he got all kinds of criticism, I noticed, for that from the left-wing group here, J Street, which Bibi has correctly scorned, I think, as not being a pro-Israel group. And I don't know why they're upset. He chose to have dinner with a pro-Israel American and not with a bunch of critics of Israel.
Well, that's why they're upset.
Good point.
He dined with her and not with them. And I want to point out he dined with her and her husband, and the two Sarahs, Mr. Netanyahu's wife and Sarah Palin, had the occasion to embrace in a very memorable photo that I published.
Right.
But I wanted to get to the issue of the criticism that she has taken from many in the conservative commentariat. I attribute this mainly to the fact that basically since December, she has not been stomping around the United States, making speeches and having meetings in the high-profile way that she did leading up to November 2010, and that therefore the accumulation of criticism and of a sort of where Sarah mentality begins to pile up. That's what I attribute this criticism to. Does this ring true with you, or do you see other causes for it?
No, it could be. I mean, we're all susceptible to sort of favoring the people we see more and the people we read about more. And we kind of expect that the traditional way you run for president, you start making the rounds of some of the commentators, the media, as well as obviously the Republican elected officials and donors and big shots in Washington and elsewhere. And she hasn't been doing much of that. So when I went to the American Enterprise Institute, a meeting almost a month ago, annual meeting, lots of, obviously lots of conservative scholars there, lots of donors to conservative and Republican causes, and Tim Pawlenty was there, and Paul Ryan was there, and you sort of get used to, or you expect, maybe Mitt Romney had been there last year, and you talk to these people and you get the sense, well, Tim Pawlenty's running for president, he's a pretty impressive guy, and so Palin has been absent from all such occasions, whether political or think tank or donors or almost all such occasions. Certainly, I don't think she's been in Washington. I wonder if she's even physically been here for months.
No, she did not attend CPAC, for example, which garnered a lot of notice.
Where Haley Barbour and Mitch Daniels spoke. So somehow you look around, and I guess that's why people sort of think, well, maybe she's not running. Now, she may just have a different theory of how to run, and that these things are quite skippable. I'm sympathetic to that, actually. A lot of these events are ridiculous, or at least you don't have to go to all of them. And, again, I think she, more than most, she has a chance to, if she wants to go, she'll run. If she wants to run, she'll run. And then there'll be a huge spotlight on her. If she's spending the time preparing, I mean, it will be very intense and somewhat unfair, the spotlight. And she really needs to be ready for that. I guess if I were in regular communication with that, the one thing I would tell her, the idea that she's not going to, she thinks she's been through the worst of the media abuse, and she probably has, let's hope. But there will be a lot of, there will be a fresh burst if she turns out to be running for president.
Well, I agree with you that she will need to be a fierce competitor, and certainly she is. My sense of things in one of the Palin colloquialism might be that Mama Grizzly has been in hibernation for a few months.
There you go.
But I would also say that I don't think that she needs to be afraid of scrutiny and criticism. I think that she needs to be only afraid of unfair, over-the-top, inappropriate criticism and commentary that was heaped upon her, and which, frankly, the rest of the conservative movement and the Republican Party did not challenge in its being heaped upon her. So as long as she's on a level playing field where she is being accorded the respect and the criticism and the scrutiny that should be accorded to anybody of her stature, anyone a serious contender for the top office in the country, my sense of things is she will do just fine.
Yeah. No, I think that could well be. I think you're right to say that, to distinguish between the two kinds of scrutiny. My colleague Matt Continetti obviously wrote a whole book about the unfair.
Yes.
Her.
Yes.
And I wonder, maybe, and maybe they won't. I can try to. I'm sure some people will, but maybe conservatives at least will not receive those attacks well. I think that's probably true. I think she needs to be sort of try to rise above the fray. Obviously, hit back where it's totally unfair, but not look like she's too sensitive. I think that she's occasionally given that impression, and it'll be very, very interesting, honestly.
Do you have a couple of minutes to stay with us and get into Middle East policy?
I'd love to, but I got to duck off here because I'm actually on my way to to an event for a Jewish day school here in Northern Virginia, and I'm running a tad late, so I should probably head off, but next time we'll do that.
Well, very glad to hear that that is the cause of your having to go. A Laban auf dein Cup.
It's a good excuse, you got to admit. A true one, too. So.
That's very wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Be well.
William Kristol, Fox News commentator, editor of the Weekly Standard, gracious enough to join us again here on Jewish Independent Talk.